Exactly.
Yeah. And having a good sounding board too, like a mentor or a coach or even like a really good friend who understands business to go to and say, I'm thinking about making this investment.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Just having someone giving feedback, which again, my husband's very wise, and he's told me every single time, it's like, you should not do that thing.
When your
I did the
heart's
thing.
not you're frozen.
Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Unleashed. We're joined in the studio today by Rachel Greeno. She's going to be sharing all of her tools, tips, and strategies for getting where she is today in life so you can learn vicariously. Guys, you know, if you've been following us at any clip, you know that I believe that the best way to shortcut your journey of success is to find others who have already been through the trials and tribulations that you're maybe going through right now and learn vicariously through them so that you can get on to the other side. We're going to jump right into today's episode because I can't wait to get started to learn more about Rachel. So here we go. Rachel, thank you so much for jumping into the studio today to share your story. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I get right to the heart of the matter, so I want to jump in right away. Okay. So a lot of business owners, regardless of where they are in the moment, they typically can find ways or paths around any obstacles that they've currently are experiencing simply just by learning from the struggles of other people. But before we get into your struggles, I want to learn about who Rachel was at the very beginning. So take us back in time. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, how you grew up, how maybe that informed who you are today.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, childhood is extremely formative. I was blessed to have parents who were really influential in my life and worked hard to get where they were. We didn't grow up very wealthy by any means. We weren't poor, but we didn't have a lot of extra room growing up. And my dad worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs to just make it by, and my mom stayed home. There were 4 girls, so it was...
God bless your father.
I know, right? Yeah, he was a trooper. So yeah, 2 or 3 jobs for him, and I grew up watching that work ethic of just him going off to work every single day and coming home just exhausted and providing for the family in that way. So that's kind of what I watched growing up. Mm-hmm. And that really influenced how I look at work. I am a hard worker, but I also learned what I didn't want from that too. Okay. So I learned, even though if you're going to hustle, you're going to do things the right way, you have an ethical work ethic, a good work ethic. You still have to have boundaries. So he was gone 12 hours a day sometimes, and we never really saw him. So I knew I didn't want that for my family, and that watching that really pushed me in the direction of entrepreneurship because I wanted to have kind of the financial freedom, but I also wanted to provide a great product for the people that I served and work. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to just do nothing.
Well, I definitely think a lot of business owners, a lot of people for that matter, can relate to that story. Growing up, meager means, parents are working hard to provide for everything that the family has. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how did that impact your childhood from a school experience standpoint? What was schooling like for you?
So I was actually homeschooled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I was homeschooled all the way from kindergarten all the way through high school. Oh, okay. And it was a great experience. Mm-hmm. My mom, like I said, she stayed home with us, and she taught us pretty much from the time that we were in kindergarten until I was in high school. And then there's a lot of co-ops, a lot of programs that are available for high school age, middle school age. So once I kind of reached that, we started doing that. Okay. But it created a really, I'm not going to say lax, because we did our work.
You did work, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, especially when it's your mom grading, it has to be perfect. Yeah. But it created a very flexible schedule. Okay. So when my dad was home, we could be with him. When he was working, we did our homework. And we had a lot of opportunities to do other things outside of school.
What do you mean by that?
Jobs.
Okay.
So I've had a job since I was probably 10.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
Within reason. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Babysitting, dog sitting, house cleaning. I cleaned houses. I started cleaning houses when I was around 11, just in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I go around like asking people like, do you need little jobs done? Like I can clean your toilets.
Okay.
So that was an interesting way to make money and a good way to make money.
How did you get that idea at that age to want to go out and do that type of work? Like any type of work in general, like at 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah. So a couple ways. My dad told me really, really early on, he sat me down and I was like, I was around 10.
Okay.
And he said, Rachel, here's where our finances stand. This is where we're going. He knew what career he was in. He was a police officer for almost 40 years. So he knew like this is going to be.
This was the track.
Yeah, that's the track. It's not going to get any more. So he sat me down. He said, if you want to go to college, and I think it's a really good idea, you need to make some money because we won't have the money to send you. Your mother and I don't have those means. So I knew from that age, it's like, okay, if college is what I want to do, which at that time I had no idea.
You didn't even know what college was.
Yeah,
at 10 years old.
I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew that was kind of what you do. So I sat down and I said, okay, well, how do I make that work? If this is how much school is going to cost, and we know it's expensive, how do I make this work? So, and that was, looking back at that was a pretty mature thought for a 10-year-old to have, but like that was the mindset that I grew up in.
Okay.
So I started doing that, and people just started giving me ideas. It's like, instead of a lemonade stand, why don't you do babysitting or do dog sitting? And I already kind of took care of our neighbors' dogs. I enjoyed dog watching. So that's what I just naturally gravitated towards. And then we had neighbors who were elderly. And, one of the things that my mom and dad both pushed was you help people, you're generous with your time, and they needed their house clean. So that just naturally progressed into that.
Okay. When you look at your experience of learning, obviously, in a homeschool environment, it's different than, obviously, traditional school.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you excelled in school, even though your mom was the one grading the papers? Or were you like an exceptional student? Were you an average student?
I wouldn't say I was an exceptional. Like, I would never say that I'm exceptional.
Okay.
I would say that I knew what I wanted. I knew the result that I wanted, and I worked hard to get to that.
Okay.
So, I am not a genius by any means. I'm good at English. I'm horrible at math. I don't even want to tell you what my ACT and SAT scores were.
Okay.
It was, I think I got, the first time I took it, the ACT, I got like a 17 in math. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. So, I was average in most subjects. But once I started taking classes outside of the house, I just kind of rose to the occasion and I did the work and I got A's. Okay. So when I went to college, I got a 4.0 in community college.
Okay.
And then I flipped to the 4-year and I ended that with a very high 3-point something.
Okay.
So it translated well.
Okay. What did you go for university for? Like, what was your area of study?
General studies with community college, and I actually grew up in Missouri.
Okay.
So I didn't grow up down in South Florida. I went to St. Louis Community College for my first 2 years. Did really well there, made some really good friends, got involved, which I feel like that's needed nowadays to really get your education. And then once I got done with that, I flipped over to University of Missouri St. Louis. I had done really well at the community college level, and I got a scholarship for a full ride.
Oh.
So
okay, made sense. Yeah, take advantage of it.
I took it. So
okay, yeah.
So general studies, and then that led to PR communications.
Okay. Looking back on it, do you think your homeschooling really prepared you well for that that endeavor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it did. We were trained, I say trained, we were brought up to do our best. And so that translated really well into college. Really good work ethic.
Well, I think you probably benefited because you had really good teachers at home.
Yes.
And I think I know that this is a topic, and I don't want to take us too far astray, but this is a topic that I think is important to a lot of people right now. They're really considering the concept of homeschooling because a lot of people are just generally frustrated with what's happening in traditional schools these days.
Yes.
Would you how when you were growing up, did you have like a large friend network that was part of the homeschooling community, or like how did that look?
We had a very large network, and I think that that's really important for people who are wanting to homeschool.
Yeah.
The community was for me extremely influential, and I know for my mom as well. She was able to connect with other moms. They were able to talk about curriculum, and then there's a lot of curriculum to choose from, and even more so now.
Yeah.
So there's definitely
can imagine.
Yes.
I think that from a connection standpoint, it's good for the students, obviously, to be connected with because it's a support network. But I think what you just said is also important. The connection at the parent level
Yes.
is it's a much deeper connection, I believe, just because the types of conversation you're having are totally different than just meeting at a PTA.
Right. No, it's totally true because they're having to play the role of teacher and principal and PE coach and all the other things. So, but it was good for us too because we got to get out, and there were, as I said, co-ops and sports. In St. Louis, there is a huge network of homeschoolers.
Okay.
So, just in homeschool Friday, there's a Friday soccer group that met and just pick up soccer. Probably 200 homeschoolers just for that one day. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And that wasn't
That's
even
a big pickup game.
Yeah. Well, they were divided into ages,
I
and
get it. But wow, that's a lot.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now let's fast forward a bit. So you're finishing up university and you're getting ready to go out into the real world, if you will. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you.
Sure. So I had done communications, like I said. I had I was blessed to be able to study under a gentleman, and I hope that I'm getting his last name right because it's been years since I've seen this gentleman, Alan Akerson, who was at the time. Have you heard of Edelbrand?
Not familiar.
Edelbrand. It's a PR firm.
Okay.
Worldwide PR firm.
Yeah.
About as big as Weber Shandwick.
Oh, I know that name.
Okay, yeah, they're competitors.
Okay.
So Alan had actually been on, I don't know if he was on the board, but he was the VP at the time that it went international.
Wow, okay.
So he was very involved with that at that level. Knew his stuff. Really, really good teacher. Good man. And he was, basically he pushed me to go into like corporate PR. And for a while, I was really headed that way. Like he told me, "Hey, Rachel, you have what it takes. If you want to, we can put you in any Weber Shandwick or Edelbrand anywhere in the world that you want to go." And I was kind of geared up to go into the London office.
Okay.
However, I also wanted to study abroad.
Oh, okay.
So I was saving and trying to go study abroad. I wanted to study Spanish because I was learning Spanish in class. And Alan, I'm going to tell this story. I've never told this story before to anyone like on a broad level, so I hope he doesn't get mad with this. I told Alan that what I wanted to do, and he said, "If you can come up with this much money, I will pay the rest."
Wow.
So he literally sent me to Barcelona in Costa Rica.
That's amazing.
For like 2 different semesters. So he and his wife have been teachers for years, and I believe he's retired now.
Okay.
But they were teachers for years at UMSL, and they had like a slush money fund that they helped out students who really.
So amazing.
Yeah. So it was really, really cool, and I don't think that I've ever like said thank you, like gone back and told him like this is what you did for me. But I got to spend 2 semesters abroad, Costa Rica and then Barcelona, which were amazing. That was the first time I left the country. That was the first time I'd flown a plane.
Wow. Okay.
And it was
life experiences.
It was life changing.
Wow.
Because I was on my own. My parents didn't even have passports at the time.
Oh, wow.
And Zoom was just becoming a thing. So I had to like time, at the time, Barcelona, I think 7 hours ahead of us because we were from St. Louis. So I had to stay up late to even talk to them. And like I knew I can't just call daddy if I need help.
Right.
I have to figure it out. So that experience was very crucial in kind of forming that self-reliance.
Okay. Interesting. So what happened when you came back home?
Well, that's another story in of itself. To raise the money to go to Barcelona, to raise that core chunk of money, I kind of made a deal with the community colleges in the St. Louis area.
Okay.
That if you send me or if you help pay, I will come back and I will teach a study abroad
Okay,
program.
so we're going to backtrack now because
Yeah.
this is cool. You went to the community colleges in advance of going, saying, "Hey,
Yes.
let's make a deal."
Yes.
How did that work out? Like,
It
how
worked
did you think about that?
It worked out really well. Like
Obviously,
so-
you went. That's cool.
So I was in student government
Okay.
for a while, so I knew the right people.
Oh, okay.
St. Louis Community College is one of the largest community colleges. I mean, it is the largest community college in St. Louis, and it's even one of the largest colleges by like student body.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people, and I knew a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went to the presidents, and I went to the heads of departments, and I said, "This is what I want to do. I want to study abroad, yes, but I also want to make it possible for other people to study abroad." So I basically built a program out and said, this is what it's going to look like. If I come back, I will teach this. This is my curriculum. This is what I'm going to be teaching about. I'll make a website. They'll have resources, all those things, and I'll make that available to all your students.
Wow.
So I set up speaking gigs and a website, and this is after I came back, but they sent me just on the promise.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one, it's amazing that you just had the idea to do that in the first place.
Yeah.
You saw, okay, I have this objective. I can't get there on my own. Let me figure out how I can find joint venture partners, if you
Yeah.
will, in this endeavor. And you went to the community college. You went to the resource that was best positioned to help you get it accomplished in the time frame that you needed to get it accomplished. That's ingenious. I love that.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty smart at the time.
It definitely was. It definitely was. So obviously that had a positive outcome. You went, you experienced living abroad, you experienced learning abroad, not just living, learning abroad. You returned home. You had to fulfill your promise to the community college
I
environment.
did, and
Okay.
it was harder than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I had to build out this entire program, and I had hundreds of pictures to pull from, and even video that I could pull from to kind of build out a good-looking program, good-looking website. But I never built a website before.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time.
Okay.
So, and it was a very simple Wix Weebly website, but the process of having to do that for myself, I figured it out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I already know how to do that. Like years later,
Right.
when I went to go do my own business, it's like, no, I know how to do that. I already got it. I
Okay.
already did it.
Okay. So you got practical life experience.
Practical life experience.
And practical business experience at
Yeah.
that.
I got an internship at the community college headquarters
Okay.
to be able to kind of do that under their supervision.
Mm-hmm.
So I got practical work experience. I got to work with the head of their study abroad department at the time, Chris Solencheski, who is amazing.
And this is before going to the university, correct? This is still in between those two?
This is right after coming back.
Right
So,
after?
yeah.
No, I'm talking about when you went abroad before going to university or after going to university?
That was at the end of my university.
Okay, so then you're coming back, you're backtracking all the way back to community college and saying, hey, let's build out this program. They basically allowed you to do that.
Yes.
They paid you to do it, essentially.
Yeah, well, the internship was unpaid, which is fair.
But they paid to get you to
there-
abroad.
there
So
were-
therefore, there was some compensation
yes.
there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Okay. So how does that program look today? Is it still going?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not still going because I had to move on, go to work.
Okay.
I basically promised that I would keep it up for like a year, and I did that.
Okay.
I paid all the fees to keep it up for a year. I kept the speaking engagements going. I did a speaking engagement at every single school
Wow.
that I made that deal with, and I put out the resources. So I fulfilled the end of that deal.
Yeah, and then it was up to them.
Yeah, it was up to
Okay.
them at that point.
So now you're 1 year after getting back. What happened next?
I started working corporate marketing,
Okay.
corporate PR. I was hired by a waterproofing company out in rural Missouri. And looking back at that, like they should have never hired like someone straight out of college for the head of the department, but they did, and it was a great learning experience. So I got to dabble in a whole bunch of things with that first job.
Okay.
And then I went on to a number of marketing jobs, like just one after the other. Just wasn't happy, wasn't enjoying them. A lot of them were sales-based,
Okay.
influencer marketing-based.
Okay.
So I did get my feet wet in multiple disciplines, though.
Mm-hmm.
So website design and SEO and copywriting and blogging, sales, cold calls, all those things, networking. So that was really, really great, but it wasn't fulfilling.
Do you think there was anything like universal across those different opportunities that you just didn't like, didn't fit in? Was it the one ingredient, or was it just each one was a different ingredient you didn't like?
It was a little bit of both. The one ingredient was that, like the one that I would have to point to was when with the corporate jobs, where it was agencies and things like that, it didn't feel like they cared about their clients. And I would come to them and I'd say, you know, I can do this thing. I can get on social media and I can say this and I can do this, and that's fine. But I don't feel like it's ethical. Or, you know, not even in their accounts, but, you know, the fact that we were the account managers and they'd be working with people overseas, or we would have people overseas working for us. We didn't let the client know. There wasn't that transparency, which is fine. Like, if you're outsourcing, it's fine.
I totally understand that, but I get where you're coming from. There wasn't enough transparency so that you could feel comfortable doing what you were doing.
Right. Yeah. The client never knew that we were outsourcing, and there wasn't that face-to-face with the team members, so they just felt shorted a lot.
Okay.
And, you know, I've used people overseas, and it's great. It works really well, but I tell the client.
Exactly. I totally get that. So you've basically, you came to this decision that working for others wasn't what you wanted to be doing, right? So when was that decision made?
It was after I was fired, actually.
Okay.
I was fired from a job. It was an influencer marketing job. It was very hustle. We had to basically find 200 new prospects to 300 new prospects per week, and then send out emails to those two or 300 prospects per week, and then keep on top of our inbox. So it was just a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of work, too.
It's a lot of work. And it was a new position. They just brought it in, and I had been promised more social media management, but it turned into cold emails. So that was just, I wasn't happy with it, first of all, and it was a lot of work, which they just had no idea because it was a new position. So not on them. It's just, it was new.
It is what it is.
Right. So there was a lot of pressure to fulfill. There's a lot of pressure for the high conversion rate, which I was new to sales at that time. There was no training, very little training. And I ended up getting fired.
I know that a lot of people who are listening and watching this episode can relate. They've gone through experiences like that. But you didn't let that termination terminate you.
No. I basically, that night, I just got engaged. Okay. So I was in the process of getting married. I went over to my fiance's house that night, or actually my soon-to-be brother-in-law's house.
Okay.
And we had a conversation. I'm like, this is, like, not okay. Like, I'm just not happy. And they let me go. I don't know what to do. And he said, well, I think that you should look into working for yourself. You have the skill set. You have the motivation. I think you should just do it.
This is your fiance saying this?
This is my fiance's brother.
So he was basically giving you counsel, saying, you have the skills.
Yes.
You have it. Go let it loose on the world.
Yeah. And I, unfortunately, and I'm very sorry, Lane, if you're watching this, I did not take your advice immediately. I should have. I didn't take his advice immediately.
Okay.
I worked for a couple different companies in between. So I completely switched to catering at that point.
Oh, well, completely switched.
Completely switched. I didn't even want to touch marketing for a while.
Okay.
So I did serving, I did bartending, I did catering for like 3 different companies, just kind of cobbled together a gig, which I had done those during college. That was part of how I worked through college. I was a bartender and a server for a very long time, so I knew the industry. Okay. But I did that for about maybe a year and a half. And then a year and a half later, I remember getting done with a very, very difficult shift. And I just remember thinking, well, I guess Lane was right. And the next day, I went online.
Then you started it.
Yeah, I went online. I LLC'd. I opened a bank account, and I started creating a business that very next day.
Wow. Tell me a little bit more about what that was like for you. Like the moment you shifted, Lane was correct. You made that decision. You're going to do it. The moment you shifted, like what thoughts went through your mind, like when you were opening your business?
Relief,
Okay.
because I felt like, okay, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. And it was also scary because I had never done that.
Mm.
So, but my husband, now husband said, you have done this. I mean, you built Endeavor On, like you built that program that, after going to Barcelona, you built that. So I approached it with a little bit of trepidation, but I was also very excited and highly relieved to just be doing my own thing. So it took a few months to get up and rolling, but I basically went out and I just pitched everyone that I knew.
Okay.
And it started with restaurants and caterers and bars because that's who I was working for. That's who I knew at the time, and that's where it started. And then I sent emails to people in my church and in my community. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. You've known me for a long time. Do you trust me with your social media? Okay. And I started with organic. Social media management. And I think the first client that I had, I charged $200 a month. Wow. For full management.
Can I get that rate?
No.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
They lucked out.
They did.
Yeah,
they did. They have no idea.
Trust me, they know. They're definitely. Yeah. Wow, that's such a rate.
Yeah, but I got some really good testimonials. And granted, this was in 2014. Well, no, not 14. That was when I graduated. This was in 2017.
Yeah, that's a really good rate.
Yeah, even for then it was.
Okay.
But I did a really good job, and I got good testimonials, and I got a lot of referrals from that.
Okay.
So it grew very quickly.
So you actually, obviously, when this is something that's very common with a lot of business owners, when they're first venturing out into business, they don't know how to price. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they skew on the low end of the spectrum.
We do.
Because again, you want the experience. I basically when I'm counseling business owners, I basically say that yes, it's okay to do that if you're doing it with purpose.
Right.
So you're doing it to get volume so that you can gain the testimonials, you gain the social proof, if you will, of what you're doing. Then you go to the marketplace and raise your prices. I totally get it.
Right.
But far too many business owners don't do it with intention. They don't do it on purpose. And they stay stuck at those price points for way too long.
I'd like to say that I learned my lesson very quickly, but I did not.
You did not.
I did not, no. And that's part of my business journey. And so I'm not afraid to talk about it. But I did not raise my rates the way that I should have for a very long time. And there was, I want to say, this went on for a while. So from 2017 to probably 2019, so a good 2 years, I performed really high quality work because I was into the ethical practices. Like you get what you pay for, you get a lot of value, and I knew strategy because I went to school for it. I did that for probably 2 years, where it was $500, $600, $700 organic management, full management for Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn.
Still amazing rates.
Still an amazing rate. I didn't know better. It was. I was working from home. I was never in the back end of those agencies that I was working for. I only knew what I was getting paid an hour.
Okay.
That's
Did
all.
you have any formal training on pricing at all?
No.
Okay, so
No,
you
not at the
were
time.
basically feeling it out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I think I went through a very long period of self-doubt too, where you have that imposter syndrome where you know you're worth something, but you don't know if everyone else knows that you're worth something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was a difficult time period, and my husband, gosh, God bless him, he kept saying, "You need to raise your rates. You need to say, you raise your rates, Rachel. Just raise your rates." And I was like, "No,
I like him already."
No. He's a very wise man, but it was like, I don't know. So 2019, there was a shift.
Okay.
I found a program online by Brandy Mowles.
Not familiar with that.
Okay, she's amazing.
Okay.
Amazing. She teaches small businesses, like solopreneurs, how to start their business and then grow and then
wonderful.
price themselves. And then she also teaches the systems and how to market. So it's a very inclusive program. And I found that by accident. I was looking into CRMs. I know that there's got to be a CRM out there. I didn't even know what a CRM was at the time. I was just doing Word documents that I would send
Oh
via
my goodness.
DocuSign.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's how I was doing my contracts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, I know that there's got to be some sort of tool that helps you do this and keeps track of your clients and sends emails. Stumbled across Dubsado,
Okay.
which is a software that does all that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was being touted by Brandy Mowles at the time.
Okay.
And so I found her, and I'm like, this woman's amazing. She's everything that I would hope to be and more. I'm buying this. So I hopped into her membership program, which at the time was way cheaper than it is now because she's grown exponentially and very affordable. It's still very affordable for what it is. And so I just jumped into that program with both feet, and I went through like all the training and went to all like the coaching and completely shifted my mindset from those low prices to the higher ticket prices where you're charging by value, not by your hours.
I love that. That's typically when I sit down with business owners, we talk about pricing. I always say you want to start first and foremost from the value proposition, and then you discount for uncertainty for the client you're serving. Right. So there's always going to be some level of uncertainty in what you're doing, but if you can close the gap on uncertainty with like guarantees and things of that nature, you get much closer to that value price, if you will, and that's your price point.
Right.
Because again, price is what someone's going to pay, value is what they get, and if you push your price closer to that value spectrum, you're going to be better off in the long run.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what she taught too. So it was extremely valuable, and I learned a lot from her, and I actually enacted it slowly though. Still, I have a problem with taking people's advice apparently, because it still took me like a year to 2 years to like really
Actually push it into
push it into play.
Okay.
So, but I did raise them a lot in my mind. It was a lot, when I first went into her program, and then I met some of the best people. And that is kind of how I've grown now. My team is through those relationships that I made in Brandy Mowles' group, and also through other Facebook groups that I've joined. There's a lot of really good information in Facebook groups if you go looking, and there's a lot of really good people. So
I think that's also probably a pretty common trait for those business owners that have achieved milestones of success. It comes down to their ability to network.
Oh, yeah.
Your ability to connect with other people, form common bonds, and then figure out how you can support one another. So I would you say that networking has been a key ingredient for you?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Networking is everything for my business. Not just in clients, but also in hiring and forming partnerships and relationships and people that are going to support you in your business that know what you're going through. So, and it's not just limited to in person.
Okay.
I mean, those Facebook groups where I have an accountability group that I have met with every single week, every Thursday.
I love it.
For the last 2 weeks, or last 2 years,
I love it.
Last 2 years.
I love it. Accountability is key because you can learn a ton of stuff and you can hope to put it into practice, but until you're actually held accountable, it's hard to consistently show up. But as soon as you put an accountability partner in place,
oh yeah,
you're showing up.
Yeah.
It's like the people who go to the gym. Like if you go with a workout partner, you actually go.
Right. Yeah, and I've not been to the gym in a long time. Of course, I had a baby. I feel like I have an excuse, but yes, totally understand where you're coming from. So, yeah, and I've had that accountability group for the last 2 years, and they are some of like my best friends as well. And that's where I get a lot of my referrals and a lot of my hires too.
So you formed this business. This was like 2016 when it started.
2017. Yeah, 16, 17.
And then for 2 years, you were testing the waters, feeling it out, starting to learn principles of operations, et cetera.
Yeah. In that time period, I also flipped to more ads.
More on the ad side. So you were organic to start, and then you flipped to ad or paid advertising, if you will. When you made the transition from organic to paid, like, tell me about that, because I know that when I sit down, I have the pleasure of being able to talk to marketers a lot, just based on what I do for work and all the different businesses we have. Like, what was that transition like for you? Because I know that is a key breaking point for a lot of people in marketing.
Yeah, well, I had a lighter load with my clients at that time.
Okay.
So I was looking for other things that I could bring in. I was also looking for something that would make me more valuable. And I had been interested in ads for a while. So I stumbled across an ad for, it was called something else at the time, but it's now Digital Distillery Pro
Okay.
with Cat Hell.
Yeah.
And
She's out in New Zealand, right?
she is in New Zealand,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and she's really good. I mean,
Yeah, she is good.
They know what they're doing. So I hopped into that program, and I paid, I mean, I stayed in that program for probably 2 years. I paid probably $8,000 to it. I mean, it was good.
Yeah, I think it's more expensive now.
It is more expensive now.
Yeah.
And it's subscription. So like, if you lose,
Yeah.
you lose access if you leave. But I finally went through everything. I felt like I got a good solid grounding.
Okay.
And I actually started taking clients like while I was still
She's
in that
mostly
course.
Facebook, right?
She is Facebook. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
she's-
Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, okay.
And that's it.
That's it.
So, and that's where I started. I started with Facebook and Instagram, and I just pitched those services to the people I was doing organic for, and most of them hopped on. Again, very, very low. It was less than $500 a month for full ad management, e-commerce, full stack.
Really good rates. Oh my goodness, these
Yeah.
people got really exceptional rates. for you.
Yes,
Okay.
they did, and they got good results. So
They got
yeah.
amazing results, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, they got significant value. Okay.
So that's where I started. That's how I did it.
Okay.
And I flipped very slowly over the next few months, and then I started getting referrals for that and word of mouth for that, and it took off.
Okay. So now you're running your business. You've now transitioned from organic to paid. What was your approach to getting clients at that point then? So was it still mostly word of mouth,
was
or did you also
mostly-
do paid yourself?
No, I didn't do paid, and I still haven't done paid.
Okay.
Which is something that I want to start doing, but I haven't pulled the trigger. I at that time did almost all referrals,
Okay.
and word of mouth. And it was just like local people that I knew. I would get clients. Now I have clients all over the country because it's people.
Everyone shares with everyone.
Yeah, everyone hears from.
You definitely want to speak with Rachel. You want to if you want some
Right.
results,
Right,
here's the person to talk to.
right. So at that point, it was all referrals. And then at some point, I decided, you know what, this isn't enough. I need a pipeline. I need to get people in the door. I need some sort of process, which again was a struggle. And I feel like a lot of small businesses, even marketing agencies that know how to market, have trouble marketing themselves.
Yes.
So that was a struggle for a while, figuring out the right pipeline, figuring out a process to where you have stable leads coming through the door. And I would not say that I'm even mastered that yet.
I think that the key to marketing yourself first is being able to figure out how to talk about yourself.
Right.
That's usually hard for everyone. So how did you manage that? Like, how did you perfect your ability to talk about you?
I did a lot of feedback from people.
Okay.
A lot of feedback. I'd write up a script and I'd send it to somebody that I knew. I'd be like, would you buy that? And they'd say no or yes, and then I'd take that feedback and I'd go on. And then I did a lot of marketing in Facebook groups.
Okay.
So I would go into Facebook groups, I would answer questions. And so I did a lot of value lead things for a while.
Okay.
So I did a lot of freebies, a lot of value-led questions and answers, and then people would start finding me based on those forums. So they'd search for a keyword, and years later, even
Right.
like I'm still getting people calling me about a post that I did like 2 years ago.
Okay. So just to make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about, you would go into a Facebook group. There would be a question or some sort of discussion taking place. You would just come in and offer value for free,
Yes.
basically answering questions or positing on a particular topic at hand. People would see that and then want to reach out to you and get more information.
Yes.
Or maybe you drop a hint that they can get access to a PDF or whatever it may be.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that was, there might be a soft pitch hidden in there, but usually it was just value. And then, if you want to know more, you can reach out to me, or not even that. Sometimes it was just, here's the answer.
Right.
Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. And that is that if you're starting out and you're trying to build, I would really suggest doing that, because the value forward or the value first model is really, really helpful when you're trying to get new clients, and it also builds trust.
I definitely agree with you getting started, but I think that it's universal. So I've had the pleasure not only with my own businesses, but other businesses that I've been counseling, and you could just see that those business owners, those entrepreneurs that lead by giving are the ones that tend to do the best.
Oh, yeah.
I know that like Alex Hormozy has a rough saying, and I'm going to totally butcher it in this plagiarism of a comment. He says something along the lines of, if you feel that you're giving too much away, that you're just getting started. Like it's like you have to give all the value up front, because the reality is this: you can give away content, you can give away strategy, you can give away all the hows, but most people won't do anything with it anyway.
Right.
So you shouldn't fear, you shouldn't hold back, because at the end of the day, most people aren't going to do anything with it. They need you to help them do something with it. So show them what you're talking about. Give, and eventually those who are ripe for what you offer will reach out and say, hey, can you help?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's what I found. I found that when I provide the how it's done, that people come back and they say, well, could you just do it for me?
Exactly. I totally understand that. So now this takes us into the 2019-2020 range.
Yeah, 2020.
Now, obviously 2020 was a crazy year for the world.
Yes.
How did that go for you?
Yeah, that was a crazy year for us too. So I was set to grow that year. I had all my systems in place. I put my SOPs down, and I basically had like, okay, Rachel, you're going to be at whatever revenue per month at this point by like April, I think is what I project. I projected I would be like at 20 grand in revenue by April, which for, when you're just yourself, that's really good.
As a solopreneur, that's huge money.
Yeah. So, that's what I projected. And then, of course, this is St. Louis. We were living in the Illinois side of St. Louis at the time. Illinois cracked down hard.
Yeah.
And they were shut down for a while. I had 3 clients who had just signed with me like the week before reach out and say, hey, we can't. And, I understood it. I mean, it was something that I had never seen before. No one really experienced before. So I let them go. And I said, good luck with everything. Come back when you're able to. And most of them actually did. But we struggled for a while. Yeah. By we, I mean I, because I was just me at the time. Yeah. So
I totally get it. I know that obviously everyone has their pandemic stories.
Yeah.
So, but you made it through.
Yeah, I did. I went back to kind of the basics, and I reached out to people that I knew. I sent an email blast, and I said, if anybody needs anything, I'm here. I'm available for work. And I had to pivot a little bit from what I did. I did consulting for a while for someone. I went in and I did some SEO work for another friend that I knew. And I actually, that was the start of building a team, was those things.
Okay.
Because I don't do SEO.
Right.
But I know a guy that does SEO.
So you were able to build collaborators on that particular project, which eventually potentially became employees.
Yes. Well, not as necessarily employees. I still have connections in that world. We do partnerships. Okay. So I don't do
like joint venture type of arrangements?
Joint venture, referral, partners, whatever you want to call it. I don't do SEO because I don't feel like I can sell SEO because I don't understand it enough. Okay. I stick with what I know. Yeah. So
if you can explain it to a third grader, then you're good.
You're right. Okay. Right. So I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm not going to sell you on it. Yep. Just here's his name.
Okay. So now we're into 2021. Yeah. Things are starting to turn around for you again. You're more refocused, if you will, on your business. Yeah. And growth. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, at that same time, like end of 2020. So we'll have to hop back to 2020 briefly. But I was approached by a friend of mine out of the blue, a gentleman who I went to school with at the community college. Okay. So, and I knew him like 10 years past at that point. So a decade-old friend calls me up out of the blue and goes, hey, I have this idea for an app, but I don't know anything about marketing. So I think I just need to talk to you. So this was a Sunday afternoon. We had like a 3-hour conversation. Okay. And he told me the idea. And by the end of that time, I'm like, I'm sold. I'll come on board. I'll help you. I don't know what this is going to look like in a year. I don't know where I'm going to be in a year, but I will help you for the time being. And he's like, cool. So that is what became now SBX, which, and that's a whole other story in of itself. We can unpack that. But it's the idea that he pitched was a social business networking platform.
Okay.
And the way that he described it was if you take LinkedIn and Angie's List and you put them together and they have a baby, but it's a Tinder interface.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So let's swipe right, swipe left, but for business professionals, and that grew from business professionals to everyone. If you have a job, if you want a job,
Wow.
this is the platform for you to make connections, authentic connections with people. Wow. So he pitched that original idea to me, and he's like, I just want to make sure that people connect. He was in Florida. He was living in South Florida. He was also from Missouri, living in Florida. And he said, we've been shut down. I'm in wealth management. Like, I can't find clients. I don't know how to find clients. We need something else that people can go to besides just LinkedIn, because he hated LinkedIn.
It definitely has its detractors.
It has its pros and cons. I use LinkedIn, but I definitely understand when people don't want to.
Okay. So we'll talk about SBX in a moment.
Okay.
You're still doing your marketing work. You still have your business that's now more on the paid side of the spectrum. You're starting to now bring team members on, right?
Yes.
I mean, how did you make that? That's scary for a lot of solopreneurs to first reach out and add cost without necessarily adding revenue to support the cost. So tell me about that.
And I made some mistakes in the very beginning. Like I had already...
You and me both. I've done the same. Keep going.
So I knew kind of what pricing needed to be, but I had never really sat down and looked at those numbers. And I had never had somebody formally sit me down like in a mentorship role and say, this is how you need to approach your pricing. I had gone through Brandy Mel's and I was a lot better, but she didn't go through team building. Yeah. So that was just something that hadn't been talked about. So I started working with these SEO providers, and I started working with a website developer, and I got a taste for it. But I remember the first person that I brought on was a social media manager, because I had a client who was doing ads for, and she's like, I just want to do management. I'm like, yeah, no biggie, we can do that. It was a dumpster fire. Wow. I lost probably $2,000 before I realized that I was going to be losing money. Yeah. So I had to go back to her, and I'm like, you've known me a long time. We're friends, not just clients. I'm calling an audible, and I'm telling you that this is not going to be doable for us. Yeah. So I didn't break the contract, but we kind of reworked it. Yeah. Okay. So she was very gracious, and looking at that is like that was really cool for her doing that. But so I learned a hard lesson. $2,000 in. It wasn't thousands of money.
Could have been 20 or
it could have been so much
grand.
worse.
Yeah,
it could have been so much worse. But to me at that time, when I was supplementing my family's income, my husband's income,
that's a huge percentage of what's coming in.
That was a huge percentage of what was coming in, and that was in 1 month. So that was pretty much my paycheck for that month. Yeah.
So looking at obviously looking back on it, it was the right decision to add staff. But
yes.
How did you what did you go through? Since you didn't have formal training on how to add it, was it just by happenstance? Was it, I need help in this because I don't have time? How did you go about it?
No, I developed a formula. So I just went out and I basically kind of pre-hired before. And because I don't have employees, even now, I have contractors who function as employees. And I just went out and I looked at, here's how much it is for me to be able to hire this person. Here's the playing field. This is what I'm going to be working with. Now, here's what I need to charge on top of that to make my own ends meet, and then still have a paycheck at the end of the day. So I kind of reverse engineered it, and since then I've gotten some training, and they do the same thing. It's reverse engineering. Okay.
So that takes us then through 2021.
That takes us through 2021 to this year. Okay. And I got pregnant in 2021. Okay. And I knew that if I didn't do something different by the time that the baby came in February, which was this past February, that I was going to be in a world of hurt. So at that point, I started bringing on team members. I already knew how to price by that point. And I basically said, I just need you to take care of them, while I'm on maternity leave. I might not need you afterwards, whatever. I had a few clients bail on me. because I was pretty much,
You were the brand.
I was the brand.
Yeah.
So that was a huge like learning
Yes.
lesson for me. It was huge. So I learned, you can be the face of your company, but you cannot be the sole person if you want to scale.
I 100% agree with that. I think that a lot of business owners get caught in that really uncomfortable space where they are the face of the business.
Yeah.
But they're also the person who everyone who's engaging with that business is engaging with.
Yes.
And that becomes the challenge, because when you're trying to shift out of working in the business to working on the business, you need to figure out how to replicate yourself to the caliber of what your customer demands.
Which is the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to find people and then have those SOPs in place. And I will say that SOPs have saved me.
Yeah. Standard operating procedures are things that I think that far too few business owners engage with.
Yeah.
It should be common practice
Yes.
throughout every single business
Before you make the hire.
before you make the hire.
Yeah. Before you make
That's critical.
Yeah.
Before you make even business decisions at times, certain business decisions, having an SOP in place can facilitate that.
Yeah.
When you look at 2022, so just we're at the time of this recording, we're in September, so we're 9 months in. We have just a quarter of the year left. Like what challenges have, obviously you've also brought a new life into the world.
Yeah.
Besides the challenges of motherhood, what challenges as a business owner have you been going through as of late?
Building out my sales pipelines.
Okay.
I feel like that's something like even when you're bigger, you're going to struggle with sales pipelines every once in a while. You're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to add things on. So we're still struggling with sales pipelines. In fact, I'm bringing on a new pipeline now.
Okay.
It's LinkedIn outreach, which is
Okay.
hit or miss, and it's really easy to become sleazy
Yes.
with LinkedIn
Yes, it can be.
outreach. So that's been a very fine line, because I've told my whole team, I'm like, we are not going to be bro marketing. We're
Okay.
not doing that. If we send messages and people are just like not into it, I don't want to send tons of follow-ups. Like it's a very fine line, and I'm not going to sell anything that someone doesn't need.
Okay.
I'm never going to do that. I'm not going to say want, because sometimes people need it, and then it becomes almost an ethical question of itself.
I'm going to give you some advice that you may not follow.
Okay.
given what you
Given
shared
my
so
history.
far. Don't ever sell yourself short with regard to marketing your message. What I mean by that is, I know that it can feel uncomfortable to share with someone who's initially non-responsive, but you have no idea why they're non-responsive.
This is true.
They could be non-responsive because they may have not logged into LinkedIn for 3 months.
Yeah.
But when they do log in for that first time, and you're top of mind or top of message, meaning you're in their inbox, you're the one that they're seeing first, that could be the very right moment for you to be in front of them.
Yeah.
So I think that far too many business owners sell themselves short with regard to keeping their message consistent. Until someone tells you they don't want to hear from you, that's when you should say, okay, fine, I'm perfectly fine with it. But until they tell you that, either actively, meaning they reach out, hey, Rachel, come on, this is the 95th email this week.
Right.
Let's cut it down. Or they do it through an unsubscribe or something like that.
Right.
Let them be the ones to tell you that they don't want to know about what you offer next. Because maybe it's not this message, but maybe it's the next email that you have that resonates and connects with someone.
Right.
And then that relationship that you build with that customer could be the most fantastic relationship that you have, which leads to customer after customer thereafter. Because that person's testimonial may resonate with people you don't resonate with yet.
Right.
So don't sell yourself short.
Okay. Thank you for the advice. It's good advice. Yeah.
So your sales funnel itself, sales process, is probably the most challenging thing in the moment.
Yeah, and I think that it continued to be probably the most challenging. Growing has not been a problem thus far, because we have those SOPs in place, and I have plenty of people that I can pluck from different areas to put where I need. And I have people in standby too. So it's like, okay, as we bring on clients, I'll reach back out to you. So that's not been the biggest issue. It's been sales.
Now, there's a lot of things that I'm impressed with regard to you. I think one of the things I want to highlight here is that you're also taking the steps to diversify yourself from a wealth standpoint, meaning you have your marketing business, but you also have SBX, which is this application that you're trying to push out to the marketplace to get some attention. You touched on it a moment ago. It's going to be the love child, if you will, of LinkedIn and Angie's List and with a Tinder interface. I love that phraseology. That's looking to launch this year, right?
Yes, in November.
In November. So in November, this will be pushed out to the marketplace. Like, how are you monetizing? Like, what's your plan to monetize that?
So we have plans to monetize eventually, but at the first point, it's going to be free.
Okay, so you're going to basically take the same model that Facebook took with regard to just making it available to anyone to get on?
Yeah, I don't like comparing myself to Facebook.
Okay, no, not many people do. I get it.
Yeah, it's going to be at first. We will have eventually. I'm sure. I know a premium.
Okay.
But at first, it's going to be all those premium features are going to be available for everyone.
Okay.
Because we just want to get people on. We want them to engage.
You need to attract the right customer base,
right.
the right loyal following, so that consistency will drive revenue down the road.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We need users who are going to be engaged with the platform, and so the only way to do that, and we felt like, was you offer them everything just out the gate.
What do you think the biggest headwinds are for that enterprise at this point?
By headwinds, what do you mean?
Headwinds, however you choose to define it. Like you haven't launched yet. It's
No.
launching in November. Like anything between now and launch that you have to figure out, or?
We are still going through beta.
Okay.
So we're probably honestly going to be doing kind of a hybrid beta, like with beta with a real launch. And I just say that because we were looking for a full launch by November 10th, actually.
Okay.
The CEO, his name is Mike Francis, and he is from a wealth management background, but he also before that was a Marine. Okay. And so he's a veteran. It's veteran owned. So he thought November 10th, which is the Marine Corps birthday,
Marine Corps,
is fitting. There's a lot of freedom for both of us in SBX. So we're going to be doing something on the 10th. But we're right now going through beta, and there's been some struggles that we've been dealing with on the development side.
Every technology company goes through that.
Right. If you've ever looked into developing an app, developing a platform, developing a website, there's always setbacks. So we're just we're holding our cards a little bit closer.
Well, the fact that he's a Marine, I'm sure you guys are going to get through that.
Oh, yeah.
And everything is easy compared to that basic training.
Yes. Yeah. This is a piece of cake. We're good.
Okay.
So,
excellent.
Yeah. And he's actually, we do have feelers out. We are currently networking. We're part of the United We Rock networking event out of Delray. And we're actually a sponsor there. So we know Daniel Hartwell really well, and we're good friends with him. And then we're just going to networking events and telling people about it, trying to get people kind of lined up. There's an email sign up, all those things. And then Mike is actually out in Las Vegas right now for a UFC fight. We sponsor Jake Collier.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the heavyweight fighters out there. So he's drumming up business right now in Las Vegas.
I get it. You're always about shaking hands and smiling at people and telling your story.
Yeah, a lot of shaking hands. Yeah.
Well, with your background in marketing, that's got to put a leg up on what you're trying to do.
Oh, so. Yeah. Yes. And part of it is, would I ideally love to have like 2 or 3 months of, social media push and emails? I would love that. Is it going to work practically because of, development setbacks? Probably not, but it's okay. We'll roll with it.
You'll get it done either way. I love it. So what I'd like to do now is every time I have a guest on, I like to jump into what I call a thought exercise for a moment.
Okay.
You've shared so much with us, and I thank you for that. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you have the capability of going back in time to meet with a younger version of you. You get to decide what stage of life that is, where you're located at the time. Okay. You have the opportunity to go back in time to that one moment and share one thing with the younger Rachel. What what I'd like you to do is tell me who that Rachel was
Okay.
and what is it that you're going to share with her.
Okay. That would be just started a business, Rachel.
Okay.
So 2017, early 2017.
Okay.
I've started the business. I've started bringing on clients. I would suggest to her, tell her very firmly, do not get shiny object syndrome.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's key advice for any business owner. If you are an entrepreneur, the shiny objects are always going off.
Oh yeah, especially with, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're getting bombarded with ads for course creators and programs that say that they know best, and gurus, and you see friends who have this social media and software and that software. Just stick with what you know. Stick with what you know. Stay with the social media. I feel like I tried pivoting to too many things. And I kind of touched on that earlier when I said I don't touch SEO anymore.
Yes.
It was a hard lesson to learn because I'm like, okay, well we'll do all the things. We'll be a full service marketing agency. I would not suggest that starting out. I wouldn't even suggest that later on.
And I think that a common trait for entrepreneurs is that we have this highly evolved dopamine system, and the shiny objects just feed our addiction to that dopamine.
Yeah.
And that's so a lot of people can deal with it. They can hit on social media, they can scroll for a few minutes and then leave. Entrepreneurs tend not to be able to do that because they're scrolling, and they're not necessarily scrolling for entertainment, but they're scrolling. That's an interesting idea.
Yes.
Or that's an interesting. Oh, maybe I could try this. That becomes a challenge because then all of a sudden 4.5 hours are gone that could have been used to actually do something actually productive within business today.
And then money follows the time.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I've probably put in, I would say, close to 30 grand in courses and certifications at this point.
Yes.
If not more.
Yeah.
And that's probably on like the light side.
Yeah.
Just because, it's like, oh, copywriting course, I'll do that. Oh, that's nice. I'll do an SEO course. I'm not saying those are bad because you should always be developing.
Yes.
But when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of overhead, that can eat away at your revenue and your profits really, really quick.
Yeah. It's sort of like a catch-22 because if you push it off until you have the capability of doing it, you won't be doing it because you'll be growing. Yeah, and you'll be focused on that. But if you do it too early, if you do engage in this distraction, the shiny object distraction, that could really derail your progress too. So you have to balance it out. Be additive, always learn something new. I think life should be an ongoing pursuit of education. Oh, yeah. But do it with intention.
Yes.
So if you're going to pursue something, you should pursue something. This is what I would suggest. You should pursue something that is actually going to have an impact today.
Right.
Or in this moment.
Right.
Not something that maybe I can get to it or I can apply it 6 months from now or 6 years from now. If you're going to pursue something, it should be immediately applicable. Right. Because if you're trying to focus on 6 months out or 3 years out, so much can change between now and then that the value that you invested to get that future knowledge may not actually be value you could use.
Right. It's just null and void at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. And having a good sounding board too, like a mentor or a coach or even like a really good friend who understands business to go to and say, I'm thinking about making this investment. What do you think? Just having someone giving feedback, which again, my husband's very wise and he's told me every single time, it's like, you should not do that thing. I did the thing.
That's a common theme with you lately. So I did the first part of the thought exercise. Yeah. I have to give you the second part.
Okay.
Second part is now, I want you to imagine for a moment that a future version of you has come back in time to sit next to you on the couch. And future Rachel is going to tell you what?
Pipeline. Diversify your sales pipeline.
Love it.
Diversify your sales pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm on one broad end of the spectrum. I'm like, oh, don't go after shiny object syndrome. But then I'm also like, but you also need, don't
shiny
put all
objects.
your eggs in one basket.
Well, that's true of everything in life. I mean, whether you're talking about your portfolio or your business,
right?
You need to make sure you have diversification in place.
Yeah.
Prudent diversification.
Yes. Yeah. And strategically done. So if I had gone back, over the years and approached my own business the way that I approached my client's business, which again is very hard, but if I had done that, I probably would have done my sales processes a little bit different, at least in building those pipelines out.
So Rachel, we've shared something with the prior you, we've shared something with the current you, from you. Now I want you to tell the audience one thing. If you had to leave them with one nugget of wisdom, something that you think can help move the needle for them, what would that one thing be?
Have good conversations with people who are deep conversations with people who are ahead of you in the game. And by that I mean they're already where you want to be. Those meaningful conversations need to happen so that you can get feedback and you can progress. So that also is a balance, because sometimes we go to the wrong people for advice, but that's what I would suggest.
I 1,000% agree with that statement. I think that if you look at the ingredients, all the different ingredients that lead to certain milestones of success actually being achieved, really good questions asked from people who have been there and done that result in you learning the formula that you can apply in your own life.
And then taking their advice.
Action leads to outcome. Inaction leads to consistency. So at the end of the day, if you want consistently what you have now, don't do anything. But if you want something different, if you want an outcome that is different than what you have now, you have to take action.
Very true.
Wonderful. Rachel, I appreciate you being willing to share so authentically. I think that this conversation has been wonderful for me. I really do truly appreciate it.
I really appreciate it.
If the audience wants to get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing in your marketing company or with regard to what's coming with SBX,
Sure.
How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my website is lamplightermarketing.com.
Lamplightermarketing.com.
Lamplightermarketing.com. Feel free to DM me on Facebook. We're on Facebook and Instagram as @lamplightermarketing.
Okay.
So feel free to DM me or email me. Get a hold of me on my website. And then for SBX, it stands for Social Business Experience.
Social Business Experience. I love
So
it.
you can go to socialbusinessexperience.com, sign up for the newsletter, sign up for beta. You'll get an email welcome from me, welcoming them into that. So that's what I would suggest.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to make sure all that information is included in the show notes.
Great.
Once again, thank you so much. And guys,
Thank you.
for you, if you've liked this episode, which I'm 100% confident you have, hit that subscribe button because you're not going to want to miss what's coming next. And until then, I wish you well on your journey. Bye for now. Rachel, thank you so much. That was amazing.
How can life be what you want it to be? You're frozen when your heart's not open.